I consider myself a rather big fan of silent movies. My father had a couple of reels of old, grimy yet still elegant production like Phantom of the Opera, Greed, and The Cat and the Canary. Every couple months or so, me and the rest of my family would all sit down and watch one of them with our old projector as a nice, relaxed movie night. They were always very fun, and many of my core memories center on those nights. The scream of terror I had when the phantom's true face was shown, the happiest when the menacing cat was first arrested. The initial confusion of attempting to follow many of these plot lines, and the misplaced joy and anger as I followed the story my juvenile mind created as I watched. As I have grown up, I have taken other interests and hobbies, but my love for classical, silent era film has never gone away. I have met friends who collect film reels just like my father. I have touched, held, and seen incredible rare movies that if listed online would easily go for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. I preface this story with all of these backgrounds because it is integral to how I come across something so bizarre. A few months back, one of my friends gave me a contact of his in Europe, Serbia specifically, and told me that he had a film that he said I would be fascinated by, which also happened to be something he would be glad to lot of himself for just around $200 of Serbian dinars. Interested, I asked and received his contact information, and later that day, I sent him an email introducing myself and inquiring about the movie, asking basic facts about when it was made and if any other copies of it have surfaced. His response confirmed the film was appropriated by my acquaintance. In slightly broken yet understandable English, he claimed the movie was filmed all the way back in 1970 and was of Romanian origin, also noting that he had not seen the film listed anywhere else, which indicated it had not only been lost but was so obscure absolutely nobody even knew of its existence beside me, him, and his family, along with anyone else he happened to tell about it. He then went on to explain how he came into possession of the reel, and gave me a general rundown of the plot. According to him, his grandfather had bought it off a wandering salesman near the Serbian-Romanian border. He never spoke much of it, but the seller recalled his father telling him to watch out for roaming fans, citing that he himself had seen a man without a tongue babbling about some movie, trying to sell it. It had been kept in the family ever since, although he couldn't say whether or not it was ever watched at all, and he certainly knew he never did, because he would either not want to sell it or there wouldn't even be a film to sell. He remembered his father telling him about how it was about some man meeting a demon, but the details were fuzzy in his head, and he couldn't remember entirely. The name of the movie, Omagiu Diavolului, or Homage for the Devil in Romanian, certainly supported this. With my interest piqued, I wired him the payment. He sent one more email thanking me profusely. In retrospect, I should have seen the warning sign starting here. It was 3 entire pages of the phrase thank you so much, repeated over and over again. And then a few weeks later, a package arrived in the mail. Opening up, it was dusty, oxidized movie reel with film wrapped around the center. I took out my old projector and screen and carefully inserted the reel, turning it on and starting the movie. I had a strange uneasiness as I watched the film move. It started with just a black screen for a couple of minutes, before coming to an established shot of a small town. The picture clarity was unnaturally high for a movie so old, and it was clear that the town scene wasn't a model nor a set, but a real one. People moved in and out of shop and restaurant and talked to each other on the pathways. And horses were seen carrying cargo on the cobblestone roads. After a couple of minutes of this shot, it cuts to a balding man writing something in a study of some sort. The room is dingy and dark, the only light being from a couple of candles at the table where the man is sat down. He is wearing a diesel suit with a plain undershirt, and his pants have holes and cut off just around his ankles. I can't see his shoes, but I can infer they are in similar bad condition. After a few minutes or so of just writing, he gets up and walks to the door, opens it, and walks through. We cut to another room, very small and connecting to a sort of dining room. There is a bed at the back where we see an emaciated woman and a young girl lying. The girl has black hair while the woman wears a nightcap. Both wear white gowns and are under blankets that cover their lower bodies. The girl sways back and forth a bit, and seemingly tries to keep away from the woman on her right, who is perfectly still, almost like a corpse. When the camera cuts again, it answers why. It is a close-up of the woman, who stares directly ahead with large, unnatural wide open eyes. Her pupils looks like that of a goat's, a long, thick horizontal line going across the eye west to east. Noticeably, there is a dent in her forehead. Not a hole, a dent. As if her head was a metal, and a hammer had been taken to it like a nail. It cuts again, and the man is walking out of the house. He walks along the road, the camera cutting to show his walk in entirely from all different sorts of angles. Across the street, from the second story of a building, right in front of him, etc. He walks inside a building along the way, and it cuts again. The man is in an office now, pleading with what seems to be a sort of executive of his company, an old fat man in a suit and beard. The man starts off the conversation quite normally, but as it goes on, he increasingly gets more and more unhinged. He starts screaming, acting out exaggerated gesture, and appearing to shed real tears by the end of his tirade. The fat man just laughs in his face as a response, and in return, the man slaps him across the face and storms off in anger. It cuts again. After what appears to be some time later, the man stands before an altar in a similar dark room as before, a jagged dagger in hand and a thick book in the other. He places the book on the altar and lifts his free hand above it, brandishing his dagger as if to slice his palm and rain the book in blood. The spine of the book has a cross on it, indicating it is a Bible. The man's demeanor is also quite off. His face cannot be seen, but his dagger hand is shaking. He turns it over his hand constantly as if he is anxious and afraid. After a minute or so of deliberation, his free hand wraps around the blade. It cuts without showing the slash, and the man is seen with bandage on his hand. He is standing before a lake, appearing to wait for someone. It is very obviously night, the only lighting being the candles seemingly provided by the film crew and the half moon reflecting off the surface of the lake. After a couple of minutes, the movie abruptly cuts to black before cutting again to the lake scene, with one huge difference. A horrifying creature now stands before the man, almost looking like it hovers above the lake. The abomination carries of human figures, a terrifying skinny one, with long and spindly arms and legs. Despite the black and white nature of the movie, I can certainly deduce the creature is pale, glowing in the night almost fluorescently. There is a man of dark feathers around his neck, going down his back and his face. Oh God, its face is an ugly, wrinkled inhuman mass punctured by a large nose that almost appears like a pig's nose, and huge bulging eyes with bloodshot vessels you could see from miles away. Around it, trundle-like limbs sprout and orbit the thing, loose flesh and fiber flowing in the apparent wind. There is no conception in my mind As to how these most likely dirt poor Romanians were able to construct such a lifelike, complex, organic props or even costume in 97, the most likely thing is that they didn't. It stared at the man for a second, and before it cuts away, I swear I can see it move towards him. If only for just a millisecond. The next shot is back in the bedroom with the woman and girl. This time, the man is standing before them in his own nightgown. His expression is lifeless, one of despair. It cuts to black again for a few seconds, and the creature appears again. Adrenaline flowing and everything. It reaches lanky arm out of the man and his attention is grabbed. He then just stares at it for a second, before the film cuts to black again and goes back to the scene for a final time. The creature is gone. The man is still staring at where the creature was, and abruptly starts walking out, ending the scene. The next scene is not for the faint of heart, so I will spare the gory details and give a brief summary. The man walks into the altar room with a small bundled thing. The camera starts to zoom in from afar on a particular part of the bundle. The man slowly turns it, and it reveals a screaming bowling baby. The camera zooms out again, and the man tries to shut it to no avail. Finally, he takes the dagger out again, pointing the blade at the baby. The next scene is the man returning home, and the scene is proportionately happy compared to the honor in the last one. The woman, his apparent wife, greets him at the door with a hug and a kiss, while the girl, who appears to be his daughter, jumps into his arms. His wife's head notably doesn't have the dent anymore. The man himself has an odd air around him. His beamy smile and jubilant attitude are infected by this shame and dread, something that's not immediately noticeable but can be easily seen once you do. His eyes are shifty, and the hand he held the dagger in shakes just a little bit, enough to be noticeable. The scene fades, doesn't cut, into the next scene. The camera fades into the same bedroom the wife and the daughter were in, except the man is laid there instead. All of the furnishing and such are taken out of the room, leaving just a plain white room with a bed. The man coughs and turns around in the bed in agony. His bald head shines with the sweat from his sickness, and he is clearly in a lot of real pain. Just when the man is laid still and the scene appears to have run its course, a sudden pentagram appears on his chest. The lines of the stars and circle burst into flames, igniting the man and the blanket. Soon everything is on fire. The man can be seen very well, but I can only imagine how fast he turned into a human puddle. It is a clear repentance for his previous deal and sin. The last scene is a small funeral for the dead man. The coffin is already in the grave, and the grave digger is on standby for when it is over. Only one figure has shown up, and it is not the man's wife nor his kid. It is a tall figure, whose face cannot be seen due to the white brimmed hat it is wearing. A priest comes into a frame with a Bible, quickly giving a man his last rites before leaving. The tall figure steps forward slowly and over a single, unknown flowers before the camera cuts to a back shot of the figure walking away. As the figure took its hat off, I audibly gasped as it revealed two large dark horns as it walked away. The movie ends with no credits. I have no idea what to make of this movie. It is bizarre, in a way I cannot hope to be seen replicated everywhere else. The frantic editing tells me it is a movie, but the lack of set design and appearance of real emotion and the entity tell me it is not. I am so bewildered and confused. I fear I have stumbled across something that no man was ever supposed to see, and I hope this does not make its way out of my possession. The knowledge of its existence and content with it could paint a target on my back and lead to the destruction of my life, and potentially the backbone of many other lives. Ever since I saw it that fateful day, around 3 months ago, there has been an aura around my house I cannot shake, like something is always watching me, observing me, and it follows me everywhere I go around the house. Whether or not it is the effect of the movie taking its toll on my mind even all this time later, or if it's something more than just paranoia, I'm not so sure. Considering the nature of the things I saw in that film, I cannot rule out the possibility that some spirit or remnant of the man or someone else followed me all the way from Serbia, latched onto the film like a postal stamp to finally greet me once I exposed my eyes to that red stamp. In spite of everything, I have but one question. If the devil was only at the funeral, what in the hell was the thing that the man saw? This story happened on the bleak night of November 14, 1995 in Beijing, China. An old man, some also say an old woman, was waiting at the bus stop at midnight, making conversation with the only other person at the stop, a quite young gentleman. When the midnight bus 375, the last bus for Route 375 from the Yuanming 1 bus terminal, finally came, they both boarded it. The old man took a seat near the front of the bus, while the young man sat a couple of rows behind him. There were no other passengers along with them, except for the driver and a female ticket collector. After a while, the driver spotted two shadows by the side of the road, waving at the bus. He stopped, and when the doors opened, 3 people got on. 2 men who were sporting a third man between them, holding him up by his shoulders. The man in the middle looked disheveled, and his head was bowed so that nobody could see his face. There was a dismal, calm atmosphere inside the bus. Shortly after that, the old man picked a fight with the young man under some silly pretense of stealing his wallet. The altercation escalated, and the bus driver forced them both off the bus. When they got off and the bus zoomed away, the old man was no longer angry. He told the young man that he had saved their lives. Those 3 new passengers did not have feet. They were floating. They were not living people, he said. After that, they went to the nearest police station to report this event, but nobody believed them. The very next day, the bus company issued a statement. Last night, the final bus for Route 375 vanished, along with the driver and ticket lady. The police immediately chased down the old man and the young man, who were initially assumed to be mentally ill when they tried to report the incident earlier. They were both interviewed on the news. On the 3rd day, the police discovered the missing bus in a water reservoir about 100 kilometers away from its destination, Xiangshan, or so-called Fragrant Hills. Inside the bus, there were 3 very badly decomposed corpses. The mystery surrounding this finding included the fact that the bus did not have enough petrol for it to keep going that far after a whole day's worth of travel. The discovery that the petrol tank was filled with fresh blood instead of petrol. The fact that the corpses found were too decomposed for just 48 hours. Even if it was summer, the process of decomposition would not be this quick. An autopsy confirmed that there has been no intentional meddling with the bodies. The fact that even after the police went through all the security cameras set up around the various entrances to the reservoir, they found nothing out of ordinary. To this day, it remains an unsolved mystery.